Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Punch, Kick, Choke Chat. If I seem like I'm speaking slowly and with great ceremony, I am. My name is Sean Benson. I'm one of your hosts. And if you know me, you know I don't drink, but I have grabbed some bubbly for tonight to celebrate our 100th anniversary of our 100th episode. And I couldn't be happier to be a part of this. I'm so pleased that you're with us. And I'm just going to say very quickly, because once we get going, I don't want to get into any housekeeping. If you're listening on your podcast, you're watching on YouTube, we're so happy you're here with us. Hit that subscribe and like button. And if you're with us on the Zoom, you know that you may or may not get to be a part, because tonight it's going to be a tough one, but we are open to saying hi to people and hearing your questions and thoughts. We're so excited to have this show tonight. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time other than to say this. It has been my privilege for 100 episodes to host with Sensei Randy Dauphin, Sensei Nicolas Suino, and Hanshi Gary Legacy. And when Sensei Dauphin mentioned this idea to me and we were chatting about it, he said, worst case scenario, it'll be another cool thing we did. And it is. It's one of the coolest things I've ever done in my life. And I just want to say very quickly that it's one thing to do something, but that negates the depth of what the doing involves. I've known these men for 30 years now. And in this last 3 years, I've gotten to know them in ways that I never would have imagined in the prior 27. So I'm so grateful to be here. I'm so happy that you're here and that this is just more vibrant, not less, after 100 episodes. Sensei Dauphin?
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here. And I'm also super excited to have Sensei Copeland, Hanshi Borkowski, Hanshi Therien on this call. This is kind of the impetus, right? We started this because it was supposed to be about people riding in the backseat of a car, listening to people who are ahead of us talk about martial arts and learning something. And I really feel like we've achieved that. Like we've done that. And it was also to be able to document the history of different martial artists in their own words, not in our words, not through an interpreter, but through their own words. And I'm super stoked tonight. I couldn't think of three better people to have on here. Hanshi Borkowski, I've known him literally since my white belt. My very first karate tournament I ever competed in, Hanshi Borkowski was standing outside of the ring and he made me feel great. I lost to one of his students. I lost to a Northern Karate School student. I got second place, but he made me feel like I was a winner. And that was better than winning. Like today, 35 years later, I still remember that day, thanks to him. Hanshi Therien and I have formed a really good friendship over the last 5 years. I'm learning so much from him all the time. I've learned so much and I continue to learn so much. And I know I got a lot more to learn from him. Love the guy. I'm so happy to be his friend. I was just with him last weekend. And then Sensei Copeland. Sensei Copeland and I have known him since I was a teenager because he's from Windsor and I'm from Windsor. And what I want to say about Sensei Copeland is we made this agreement together and I said, if you ever call me, I'll come. And he said, if you ever call me, I'll come. He has come every single time we've ever called. He's always come and we're going to always come. Every time he calls us, we're going to come, and we're going to come in like just a few short weeks to his tournament, the Windsor Open, and we're going to have an outstanding time. Honestly, love all of you guys, and thank you so much for coming on tonight. So proud to have you guys on here, celebrate our 100th episode together.
Thank you so much, Sensei Dauphin. And by the way, when I gave that intro, Robert, who's behind the scenes, part of our team, running the show tonight, he just kicked up the red button in the chat at the bottom. So if you're on the Zoom Live, that's where you're going to fire your questions for us. And we can't wait. Look, let's just jump right into this. And, we just had those intros of our guests. So we'll ask this question and we'll just go Hanshi Therien, Sensei Copeland, Hanshi Borkowski in that order. And then we'll go around the horn as well. So we've got a few things prepared because we do want to talk about the time we've spent on this show. So the first question I want to start with, and again, we'll start with you, Hanshi Therien. Did PKCC, Punch, Kick, Choke Chat, and other podcasts like Karate Canucks, they started during the pandemic, right? Did that help the community and how? And are they still helping now that we're back out there and able to meet in person again?
Well, look, a podcast is to get like-minded people together. And that PKCC did. It gave us a chance to learn more about some of the pioneers, some of the legends. I don't know everybody. I didn't know everybody that was on PKCC, but I've learned a little bit more about each person. And I think that it has helped because we forget very fast that the pandemic was the worst thing in my lifetime in every ways possible, right? So staying at home, couldn't go out. I had to contact a lot of people around the world that are with World Kabuto and try to motivate them and try to let them know that one day we're going to be back to normal. So on PKCC, that has helped the guests that came on, and that in return helps the students that they have and their connections with martial arts. And it gave me also an opportunity to meet people that were doing Zoom and podcasts and classes. And one day Hanshi Borkowski told me, like, I think they did 25 or 35 classes a week on Zoom. Now that's tough. I don't think I could do that seriously. I could teach 25, 35 classes a week, but live. So, but on podcasts, when you see what's happening there, it gave an opportunity to say, well, maybe we can share this around the world in a different way. And that's all because of PKCC. And out of that came 24 hours live martial arts around the world. And that's because of you guys. I didn't know how this works. We had different times that we had a happy hour on Zoom, calling maybe 4, 5, 6 people at the same time, but never having a martial arts discussion. And at the same time, PKCC recorded the history of all those people that were there. Now, I don't like to say what I'm going to say, but in 25, 30 years, I think I'm going to be gone. Adios, you know. And but whatever interview I did with you will stay. Whatever interview that everybody did will stay. And when somebody says, well, I knew John Therien and this is his story, well, you say, hang on, this is what he said. How, you know? And it's going to be, yeah, and it's going to be recorded. A lot of things I'm doing in my life right now is for my grandkids. I have 6 grandkids from 10 to 21, and I'm putting things aside. I'm coming out with a book there over the next year, personal things, to leave the history and the story of, and my journey, of course, that's going to be there. Hanshi Borkowski and I have been sort of rocking it for 30 years. We know pretty much everything about each other. But when he's on, I always learn something a little bit new. So my answer to that is PKCC has helped me, and I'm sure that it has helped a whole bunch of other people. So because of what you did, we reached out one time with 41 countries and did 24 hours of martial arts. Thank you for doing that, guys.
You bet. Thanks for that answer. Sensei Copeland, what about you? How has this helped, and will it continue to?
Oh, absolutely. I think the PKCC started at the perfect time because, yeah, like Hanshi Therien said, the pandemic was a time where nobody had a chance to, physically interact. And if it wasn't for the community that was created, who knows where things would have gone? It probably would have been a little bit sideways, but it was definitely needed at the time, and it was a way to stay connected with people of like mind. And for those reasons, I think the future generation, when they are talking about the old masters, I think they're going to be referring to kind of like us, because we talk about the old masters who are now passing away and leaving the gatekeeping to us in a sense. So it's going to provide them with some form of education, some way to reference people that they may have trained with or heard or known or seen on the podcast or seen on the PKCC. So yeah, it's been a timely tool and well needed at the time, and still going now for now it's 100. So everything small, everything big starts small. I don't think anyone predicted it would be 100, but here we are. And who's to say how much more we're going to do? But we do know that the foundation has been laid. And from that, you can build.
Love that. Thank you, Sensei Copeland. Hanshi Borkowski?
Well, maybe it was started for whatever reasons it was, but to me, it's really a vehicle that took on life of its own in an incredible way. You brought together such incredible martial artists. I mean, starting with the four of you guys who came up with the initial idea. I mean, I've known Hanshi Legacy for 50 years and Hanshi Therien for 50 years. But as I got to really know, everybody, the co-hosts, Sensei, I bought your books long before we ever met, that stuff. Conroy Copeland, I've known him, I've watched him fight for many, many years through Don Warner tournaments and things like that. So we have a really strong connection to each other. But, we have Pat McCarthy and Sam Moletsky and Monty Guess and Jean Frenette and Chuck Merriman, all these people that came on. I think the secret to your success is the quality of the guests that you had. Okay.
Mhm.
So you really didn't have any duds. And it's very hard. Sometimes you're doing it 3-4 Thursdays in a month, and it's easy to slip. But I know that, a lot of times I catch her because I'm teaching this, our classes are running right now. So what I do is I've watched every single one of your podcasts on YouTube, so I watch all the time. So I'm quite aware, and I learned so much. I learned so much from people I didn't know, but you almost give them this kind of seal of approval by putting them on the show. I know they're people of quality, so I learn a great deal from other people. And my whole mission is, like Hanshi Therien said, I'm hungry to learn more. I think Anthony Bourdain's show was, no reservation. I'm always hungry for more. The same thing, and I think that's something for John and Gary, who are close to my age, or we realize that our time is very precious and maybe somewhat limited, but we're still hungry to learn more, and I think you guys are providing what Conroy was saying about the master generation. In some ways, it's your turn to mentor us, and the Soroka senseis, the Park Jong-soos, the Benny Allens, they're gone, so the seniors are here, but that time is very temporary. So I really encourage you to think about what is the legacy of the show. How are you going to prepare, perpetuate it, and and just please keep going. If we're not here anymore, at least our students will enjoy the effort. So I salute you. I thank you, and we're so honored to be on this 100th episode, and I'm a fan. So just keep it going, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Really appreciate that. And just before I go to Hanshi Legacy, the idea about there being no duds, like, no human story is actually a dud. And our mandate is, you've all been guests, is we're here to support you and we're here to tell your story. And our whole job is to keep the ball in the air so that it comes through. So I really appreciate that, that is what we're trying to do. And so that's happening is really awesome. Hanshi Legacy, what has this been for you starting during the pandemic? Was it helpful? And, do you think now that we're living real life again, it still will be?
Well, again, everybody's going to say basically the same thing. It's for myself personally, I got to meet a lot of different persons I would have never met. I learned a lot more about martial arts, different styles, different opinions. And on the other hand, I can go in a few places. I think it's 4 or 5 places, and not maybe unhappy in one way, but it's good in the other, is that we got to speak to some of the persons who passed. Maybe about 4 different persons passed that were important persons that passed during our podcast. So I feel we did some good for the martial arts world, for our world, our industry.
Thanks, Hanshi. Sensei Suino?
Yeah, one thing I really love about martial arts is you meet new people all the time. Sometimes they're of a completely different generation. They might be kids when they come into your dojo, but then you develop these long relationships. What's cool for me on this call is I've got one of my longest students, Daniel Holland, is on this call, and a few of my newest students, Scott Lemke, ZT, Sarah Michael, are on this call. So, somebody I've known, 20, 25 years, and some folks I've known a few months, they're all on this call. They're paying attention. It's like being in a dojo, except instead of a dojo inside 4 walls, right now it's a dojo, a planetary dojo. And it's amazing, not to mention all the really well-known, important people in the martial arts scene that I never would have had an opportunity to meet. It's not only helped during COVID, it's helped post-COVID. I think it's going to continue to grow with the help of everybody on this call. And we'll just keep making new friends and doing one of the best things you can do in life, which is getting better at martial arts.
Amazing. Amazing. Sensei Dauphin?
Listen, for me, Sean, this podcast I feel like it helped to save my dojo. Like before the pandemic hit, I thought I was going to have to close the dojo. Like I really did. I really thought like I'm going to have to close this down and start over again. But through some other initiatives, but through this podcast, like I've just found so much energy to like put my nose back to the grindstone, through working with everybody here and just figure out a way and figure out different ways to keep things going, and become very inspired by the people who came on the podcast. Every person who's come on had some level of adversity. Hanshi Therien had like, his dojo burnt down, right? But not his belt, right? His belt, right? So through hearing these stories and learning this stuff, it was like, no, don't be a wimp. Don't be a whiner. Hanshi Sai, are you a martial artist or not? Show me, fight, right? And just hearing these stories and these different people who are senior to me say these things, it really helped me personally a lot to keep things going. I always kind of wanted to, I never got to meet Yamaguchi Sensei. I never got to meet Benny Allen Sensei. I never got to meet these people. And I always heard their stories through Sensei Legacy and Sensei Suino. And I just think what we did, where people can tell their own story, they can say it in their own words, as Hanshi Therien said. And later on, somebody will say, that's not what Hanshi Borkowski said. I just listened to the podcast where he said that he did these things. I really value that. And one thing I want to just share, because it's the 100th episode, things that other people don't know about this podcast. So when we started talking about it, surprise, surprise, Hanshi Legacy was a little bit on the fence about whether he wanted to do it or not. Right? He was a little bit on the fence. And I have this picture where Sensei Suino's calling in and Sensei Legacy's on his computer and I'm on my phone on the other side of his garage. And we're all like trying to talk to each other to figure this out. And then when it was all said and done, Sensei Legacy was like, okay, I can try this. Like I can work with the technology. It works. So I just want to share that with everybody, that Kel Surprise, Sensei Legacy was a little bit on the fence about doing this 99 episodes ago.
I just want to add one thing for me, because of what COVID was. It's different for everybody, but what it was for me, Sensei Dauphin, you and I were talking about a week ago, and we were talking about doing a tournament together this summer with some other people. And I said, well, I'm going to be in Calgary the whole time. And Sensei goes, yeah, well, we can fly to Calgary then. We're here to talk about solutions, not problems. And I've thought about that every single day, if not every hour since you said that. And that reminds me of just what this program is. This was a solution, not a problem, during a time when a lot of people were about problems. And the problems might have been very real, but there's always a solution. And, I love when you said that to me a week ago, Sensei. It's my meditation for at least 6 months. And I think that's what we got to do here. And I'm just so grateful we got to.
Yeah, and just for clarification, we're talking about a BJJ tournament because I'm an illustrious one-stripe white belt and I want to compete in every art that I train in. So I want to go do a BJJ tournament at some point.
Love that. So we have a special guest who's going to pop on and say hi. He's been one of our guests. And Robert, I'm sending you the skull emoji right now. We have signals behind the scenes, and I just realized I forgot to send him the signal. It's like that Batman episode, the Batwake. Robert, it's the skull. So with that, he's going to queue up our guest. There he is. Patrick McCarthy is coming to say hello to us.
They're putting Mark already. Good morning.
Good morning. How
Good
are you?
evening.
Hey, Hanshi.
Good evening. Sorry, that was a bit of a surprise. I should have read my messages here.
Oh, okay.
Hi, Sai from Okinawa, everybody.
Hi, Hanshi McCarthy.
Thank you so much for Gary, John, comment ça va aujourd'hui, mon ami?
Ça va très, très bien, merci.
Très bien, merci beaucoup. Sean, Nicholas, Hanshi Borkowski. It's lovely to see everybody. And, I was thinking as you were talking about, there's solutions and there's problems. And who would have ever thought that this pandemic was going to last as long as it did? And I can remember still being in Los Angeles thinking, gosh, I can't go outside. And I had this next door neighbor who was a perpetual meditator, yoga, Tai Chi. And I remember she was about 80 years old. She said, if you can't go out, learn to go in. And I went, okay, that's pretty, but I can't help but think, and just in the same way that everybody has just said this here now, that the pandemic era, for as much bad as it did, and it did unfathomable and unthinkable bad, it also created this online connectivity and created a platform for we like-minded people to come together in pursuit of common goals. And in doing so, shared experiences, grew exponentially, forged friendships, and I think helped inspire others to share this wonderful opportunity. And so I'm so grateful to have been a part of it, and that you let me be a part of it. And now 100 episodes later, my goodness, 100. I have a question for you. Did you ever think it would turn into something as big and as wonderful as it has?
That's a good question. I'm going to jump in on that one, Hanshi McCarthy. That is a great question. And there was a time when we discussed, how do we change this? Do we pare it back? Do we not do it as often? Listen, Sensei Suino on the call, he said, we haven't even done this for 5 years yet. We don't want to be quitters. At 5 years, we can decide whether we're going to stop doing it or not. So we're 3 years in, 2 more years from now, I think Sensei Suino would say, we're just getting started. And we're going to be doing it. Yeah, we're going to continue to do it. Work isn't working.
Is anybody coming to Okinawa soon?
Are we being
possible?
invited?
Yeah. I mean, nothing's booked, but nothing's impossible within one phone call.
Jean Therien has been such a remarkable influence upon, I guess, all of us, of course, but I can remember back when I was still living on the mainland in Japan back in the late 80s, and wanting to attend his some of his functions worldwide. I would every year I would say they were in South America, they were in the France or Monaco, or they were. I said, wow, I really want to be able to try to do that one day. And this year is the first year I'm going to be able to try something on a much smaller scale. So I invite you all to Okinawa in October. We've got 4 days leading up to the 25th of October, which is Karate Day worldwide. So if you're in the neighborhood, please, Mensore, Okinawa.
I think Frank Klink is coming to see you.
Yeah, I think Frank's coming next month. I think he's coming next month.
There you go.
Or maybe this month. But wherever he is, I've already booked the golf course, so we're ready to go.
That's awesome. And again, you were one of our early guests, and you are a luminary in this world. And we just want to say we appreciate you coming on early and lending some credence to the show. And as far as that invitation to Okinawa goes, we are going to say good evening right now, Hanshi Karthi, but thank you so much. And thank you so much for being a part of our 100.
Thank you, everybody. Enjoy.
Thanks, Hanshi.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
It's so true. Every guest who comes on gives the show validity. Every guest makes their students, their contemporaries go, yeah, if they were on it, then that's something now I would either consider going on, consider watching. And so I really meant what I said, that, every one of you who's been a guest on the show, everyone on the screen, it just makes the whole thing flower out. I'm going to jump into a really obvious question, but I'm so excited to hear. I'm just going to go by my screen. Sensei Suino, I want to start with you. Favorite episode?
That's a ridiculous question.
You know it's coming.
Did I know it was coming?
Oh,
Well, I'll tell you what, here's my favorite episode, and it's a tiny segment of an episode. We had a luminary on this show early on, and for some reason, I don't know why this went around, but somebody asked, if you were a superhero, who would you be? And we had Superman, I don't know, Spider-Man, the Hulk, whatever. And when they asked me, I said, well, I want to be Conroy Copeland. And I stand by that today. If I have the chance to transform into a superhero, I'm going to be Conroy Copeland Sensei, and that's it.
amazing. Sensei No Fan, favorite episode.
I just want to say that was at the May training camp that we put on with in Kitchener with Hanshi Therien and Hanshi Legacy. And it was in the icebreaker where all the instructors were kind of meeting each other. That's what you said. That says, it's really hard for me to say. I can tell you my least favorite episodes, but I won't.
You mean you're gonna hurt us?
Yeah, somebody's trying to hack your phone right now.
That's a
What
bad
is it?
news.
What is it?
Present company excluded. I can tell you things that stand out in my mind because I ruminate on them all the time, right? So it's written on my board. When Hanshi Borkowski was on, he said, great things never come from comfort zones. And I wrote that on the whiteboard, and we look at it all the time in this dojo, all the time. I will tell you, I really, really enjoyed Sensei Jocelyn's podcast. I really enjoyed listening to his podcast. One thing that stood out to me is, greatest achievement when he said, I'm proud that I'm the kind of a man that another man would walk across the street to say hello to. That's stuck with me for a long time. Yeah, so many. Sensei Maloney, that was one where I was very, very emotional on that when he was talking about basically starving and having to kill food with his bare hands, animals with his bare hands to live. And then you skip forward to him being in another city and having to pay so much at that time to do martial arts, but then leaving that dojo with a huge check in his pocket and being able to start basically like his own martial arts journey independently. Like those are just a couple, but I mean, even Chet Schemelhorn, right? Talking about having to learn BJJ on VHS tapes, right? Learning BJJ on VHS tapes. And now he's like one of the most prominent BJJ instructors out there. So, I mean, so many of them stand out. I watch them over and over again too, and learn new stuff all the time. So I can't just say one. I got to say like 10 of them, but all the people on this call, you're my favorites for sure.
Hanshi Legacy, favorite moments or episodes?
I really, again, there are too many great people out there, too many martial artists out there to really pick one, because everyone who's come have been people that are leaders in our industry. So I became, more than liking one, I became awed by more persons than ever before. So I would like to say though that I really miss Billy Hines. That's it for me.
Yeah. Sensei Copeland, anything, any standouts, any moments?
Well, the thing that stood out the most for me, not so much a favorite, but was the fact that, all the guests that was on the show, for the most part, we all came to the martial arts initially for similar reasons. And that was kind of interesting to see from all different styles, from everybody's located different place, but they all had that one kind of like common denominator why they got into the martial arts, which was part of the part that I like to listen to when you ask them that question. So what got you into martial arts to begin with? And just about everybody had similar stories how they first got there. So those were very interesting, because people you don't know are thinking the same way you are when you first got into the martial arts. Like everybody wants to do martial arts for the same reason, pretty much. So that was the important part. That was the fun part for me.
Love that. Hanshi Borkowski?
I don't think it's a specific episode, it's like Randy said, I took little bits and pieces of information from different guests, and it's not really the big things, is the little things that really stick in my mind. And maybe, you're speaking about Bill Hines and Gary Legacy and Rick Joslin and John Therien used to be quite a fierce person, but the person that, John referred to Jean-Yves Thériault as the Iceman, and at some point he became the Nice Man, So I really enjoy Gary and Rick Joslin, who I have a lot of respect for, and his son, Jeff, as well. I enjoy watching the change, the maturity, going from a fighter kind of martial artist to being a holistic individual, somebody who becomes a leader, somebody you can really look up to. And I saw the transformation, because a lot of times, I think we all have this fault. We think of the person the way we remember them. If you met somebody in 1980, you think this is how they are, but the evolution is incredible. And I'm just overblown by the progress that people made, the educational aspect that they're developing, the leadership, the mentoring they do to the students and the community at large. And it's just, like I said, it's really remarkable. For me, it's not even the words per se, just listening to the words and feeling the change that's happening within that. And I want to be part of that. I want to thank you for that. And it's just incredible. So I thank you for that. I can go through everybody. I think Doug Kinnispill is on the, I watched them from being a young boy and, at Steve Reynolds Dojo to becoming leader and the head of Ontario Jiu-Jitsu Association, who helped so many of us to, open our doors earlier, things like that. So I'm so indebted to Doug and so many other people. I see Jim Flood, who is a great fighter, and how he's doing incredible things. Jim has a program where he teaches kids who are educationally challenged. They have different programs, and that's going to be huge. He's doing incredible things. And it's just, it's really, we're transcending the punching and kicking and locking and swinging weapons into a tool for change. And I think it's just, and I think you're a vehicle for that. So I thank you very much. And let's move on. Yeah.
Right on. Hanshi Therien, favorite episode or moment?
Well, I didn't watch all the episode, but just like Cezar mentioned, and that Conroy Sensei mentioned, it's little snips and little bits of everything. Like I've traveled around the world with Hanshi Borkowski and Alain Sailly and I, and I'll tell you, we have some stories that we could tell the stories and have the best movie as a comedy, and the other side would be a very big drama and then some sadness. But in general, it's the little things. And I remember Sam Moletsky coming on, and I told Cezar that he made me laugh. You wouldn't believe his journey in martial arts. He's a great martial artist, but it was how he became there, like going here, there, and so to me, that was great. A funny thing that happened is Hanshi Alain Sailly comes on, and the first thing you know, right smack in the middle of the program, he gets up and leaves, and Randy went, ladies and gentlemen, we have Hanshi Sailly, and then he comes back, he said, oh, okay, he went and got a beer, I mean, he's he's a role model for all of us. He's a fantastic human being. And if you put Hanshi Borkowski, myself, and Hanshi Sailly together, we're the Trinity, and we travel together. We have so much fun. But when you put either one of us on the mat, we become who we are. And that, in those stories, that's what comes around, and that's what gets developed to come around. So not necessarily one episode, but the whole picture for me is what I enjoyed from PKCC. Thank you.
Thanks, Hanshi. For me, I know that the Bill Wallace episode was really important because it was our first guest who wasn't in our immediate circle and someone we just had on speed dial. And that felt important for the show, that we weren't just going to people we already knew well. That episode was excellent. It wasn't any better or worse than any others, but that having someone outside who had a name, that meant a lot. Personally, I really loved our time with Chuck Merriman. There's something about his stature, where he is in the lineage and his age and the time at which he was willing to, leave his wife, not leave her, but separate from her to do the martial arts. It reminded me of the pre-internet, and Sensei Suino, we talked about this a lot on your show, like that pre-internet, what it meant to leave and go somewhere. You weren't actually in touch with people through a little phone or a device. You actually went somewhere. And his story really reminded me that. I will say this. This is an every episode thing. Nothing makes me happier than the 10 questions. I mean, nothing makes me smile more than when we hit that time, whatever we've changed it throughout the 100, but when we know those are coming, I just can't wait to hear what people are going to say. And honestly, it's a great little piece within the show because it's a benchmark and it routes everybody through the same sort of door. So that's something that those two guests really stood out for me for different reasons, but that 10 questions is always my favorite part of the show. So Sensei Copeland and Sensei Borkowski, you touched on this in what you just talked about. So don't, you can do whatever you want with this, but I actually want to go around the horn and ask, what have you learned? Like, what's the thing most either surprising? I learned this and I didn't know it, or this is a commonality that I learned. Like, what have you learned? What have you all learned from this show? Sensei Suino?
I have learned so many things from this show, but you heard me say it. The arc of the martial arts life is an amazing one. And I find myself saying this all the time. I think it's one of the best activities that human beings can do. We're the antidote to all the nonsense that's out there, all the negativity, all the shallowness. People come into martial arts for a lot of different reasons. They want confidence, they want strength, they want self-defense, they want a community. And those who stick with it for 30 years or more become absolutely amazing for their communities. They raise other people up. They're a role model. They're a guide. They're mentors. And often they're almost like family. When I think about my a couple dozen closest martial arts students, I don't even know how to explain what that relationship is like because there's no direct parallel outside the martial arts. It's not exactly brother and sister. It's not exactly father and child. It's not exactly uncle and niece or nephew. It's really close, and it's really close because you share so much DNA. So what I've learned from this show is that arc, that lifetime arc in the martial arts, which I treasure with all of my students, and I'm beginning to develop those close relationships with a lot of the folks on this call too.
Right on. Hanshi Therien, let's ping back to you. So we switch the order up a little. What's the thing you've learned the most from 100 eps or however many you've been a part of?
If you go back, like I go back to the 60s, and when you look at the 60s and early 70s, which all of us over here, except Randy, maybe, but all of us were there. And is that our journey was the same. It's like when I mentioned about Sam Molesky, the reason I laugh is because Sam was telling us where he had to go to this place and that place. That was me, right? That was me in Lower Town of Ottawa, having a nickel and a dime in my pocket and trying to get things done, and finding a friend who was an orange belt because I was a yellow belt. And so the journey, everybody's journey was the same. You mentioned Chuck Merriman. I spent some quality time with him, laughing, having a few drinks, going nuts, crazy. And when it got to martial arts, well, he was about 10 years older than me. So there's something that he brings in that was a little bit further than me, right? So to me, that's what I think, and that's what I grasp from it, right? And then you speak about I remember when Sensei Chiroka came to Ottawa with Shane Higashi at André Langelier's karate school to present the black belt to George Sylvain and another guy named Berube, right? And I was there, and I was like orange belt maybe in jiu-jitsu, and I'm in the crowd in the dojo, and I thought God walked in, right? Then you get to know him. He was the father of what we do. He was the front guy. And when you get to know him, he was a basic person. And you look about his background was very similar, right? So, yeah, so that's what I take from it. So thank you for all of those who brought that over for me.
Right on. Hanshi Legacy, what about you? You've been on every app. What have you learned, if anything?
Actually, you learn a lot about yourself by listening to other people, right? About whether you're you're up to standards or not, or you can compare, what everybody else is doing and whatever in that way. And you sort of like belong to that family. And I think that that personally for me encourages me a lot that we're going down the same path. I'm not going somewhere else, going the wrong direction, but guys like Sensei Borkowski, guys who came before me, you just watch them, they're still there doing the same thing and learning just more about that same thing. I think that helped me a lot.
Right on. Sensei Copeland, what about you?
Well, the cool thing for me, and this is, with no disrespect in mind, a lot of the people on the call, like the people that have their screen on, I've known, except for I haven't known Sensei Sweeter for that long, but everyone else, I used to compete with Cezar. I've never won any of the weapons division, but that's okay.
But I gotta bring it up.
But it was nice because the podcast introduced me to a lot of martial artists that I didn't physically know, but through the podcast we got to know each other a little bit. But then we met at some events, like there was the John Therien, the 24-hour training. We did the Randy, your thing in Kitchener there, and then we're up in somewhere else. Where are we at? Ottawa. So when I met some of these people for the first time physically and saw them after hearing them, it was quite apparent that there's a lot of badasses out there. So the good part was nobody really disappointed. Just like it sounded, we were good. You were good. And I was happy about that, because sometimes you hear things and then in reality, it's not quite as good as you would like. But I was happy to say that my favorite superhero is Sensei Suino. And when we met at Randy's thing, we had a chance to hug it out and came to the conclusion that, yeah, we got each other's back for sure. So badasses, definitely. We talk nice, we do nice things, we want to make change in a positive way. But when push comes to shove, somebody's getting punched in the neck.
Me and Alden down here in Toronto, we love the term mouth warrior. That's like our favorite insult. It's like that person's a real mouth warrior. It's Hanshi Borkowski, what about you?
Well, maybe I can make a couple observations first. So just you spoke so kindly about Chuck Merriman. Chuck Merriman has a significant impact on my life. He introduced me to my wife. So he was the marriage broker. My wife, Marian Manzo, who is a phenomenal martial artist in her own right, who was a guest on the show. She was a student of a teacher by named Toru Miyazaki, who was very famous New York-based Shotokan, and he was one of the 60s. He fought Chuck Norris and Ron Marchini and all those guys. He was one of the early black belt fighting stars, and she was his first female student. So Chuck Merriman told me, you should marry her. You guys would have a good legacy. So I thank, not curse, I thank Chuck Merriman. So it just worked out wonderfully. And he was an incredible man. I spent so much time in Niantic, Connecticut, where we became great friends. He was in Canada here a lot, and then he was a coach to our amazing colleague Jean Frenette is here, and Pat McCarthy. He helped coached us, and Jean was, of course, much more connected to him later through the Atlantic team and being part of the Judokan Goju-Ryu group. So just Chuck Merriman. If I had 3 thumbs, it'd be 3 thumbs up. So we'll leave it at that. Just a note about Gary Legacy. I had a thing called Northern Karate Shiai. This is before tournaments were very big. And that was first thing that I ever had a tournament in Toronto. We had 300 people. And the winners of that tournament was Gary Legacy, won first place in sparring. And he beat a guy from his dojo. Help me here. Your colleague there.
John Pearson.
Yes, thank you so much. Yes, perfect. And Ken Talik won kata and Mo Chow won weapons. And how good is that lineup? I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. So that's Gary, hats off, just tremendously. John, I can't say enough nice things about him. He's the guy who connects the entire world. It's just without him, there would be no 97 countries talking to each other in broken English everywhere, you know, so he's the connector, he's the maven that makes that happening. So I'm honored, you know, guys. It's not really what I learned. It's I'm still learning. So we'll leave it at that. So, you know, and I just want to say to Suyana Sensei, his words, you know, sometimes he says less, but he says more, you know, his words really hit me deep. And he's talking about the family and students. There's a Japanese term called kizuna. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but kizuna is, some people say brotherhood, sisterhood, but it's not that. It's basically someone who, you know, you can really depend on, you know, and sometimes they're of the same style, same dojo. Sometimes they're not. Maybe, you know, they practice a different martial art, but you know, in a time of crisis, those are your go-to people. I think everybody on the screen here is definitely a kizuna. So we'll leave it at that. So thank you.
Thank you, Hanshi. Sensei Dauphin, what have you learned the most? Or
so the people on the call, as Sensei Copeland said, and as I said at the beginning, I've known them for a long time. I guess I learned my place, which is not as low as I might have thought it was, but definitely not as high as it is, because, you know, a lot of these people that we've had on, like, you know, like somebody like Demura Sensei, right? Like, he's just a legend. Like, his books are on the shelf. He's Mr. Miyagi. And yet you meet him and he's just like us, like he's the same. So that's what I've learned, is that we're all just these people that I idolize and look up to, like Jean-Yves Theriot. Like I idolize that man. I've looked up to him since I was 13 years old, like wanted to be able to fight like him. But then when you're with him, he's just the nice man, just such a warm, friendly person. And one thing I've also learned is that, and everybody should listen to this, these people that you idolize, they're very, very accessible. Like they're not behind like a guarded curtain. They're not behind guarded ropes. They're in the same place as you. They're out there on the floor doing the same thing as you, and they feel the same as you, and they're accessible to you, and you can learn from them, and you can walk up to them and say, "Hi, I'm Randy Dauphin. I've admired you for a really long time, and I'm really honored to meet you." And they'll say, "That's awesome. Who are you? I'm honored to meet you too." And there's reciprocity in that relationship. And that's one of the things that I've learned through this show, that these people you look up to, they're just like you, right? They're just farther ahead on the curve, right? Maybe know a little more.
I love that, Sensei. One thing I want to chip in before we bring on a guest to say hello. I think this is the greatest faith on earth. And, you know, one of the most important phrases in my life is faith without works is dead. It comes from the Bible, basically, and then it was sort of adapted to sobriety. But, you know, when I think of all the masters we have on the show, the common thread is always gratitude, lack of regret, and a serenity around that, and just trying to give back. And that, to me, is the ultimate achievement of a life well lived. And the faith of this martial arts is the works by which people arrive at that. And, you know, I'm further behind on the path in that way, but it's so amazing to just watch guest after guest just be like, well, I'm just trying to be a good person. Well, I'm just trying to get back. I'm just grateful for the life I've lived. I don't have regrets. Not everything worked out the way I wanted, and I'm like, wow, that's literally the definition of living in faith. And I love the idea that we throw these punches and kicks and grapple and all this stuff, and then we wake up one day better people than we would have been without it. That's the biggest thing I've learned from this. And I think I had an inkling that was true, but when every single guest says it, who's one day older than me, I'm like, great, I am on the right path. Robert, if you would do us a favor, his name was just mentioned. Bring our friend Sensei Jean Fernet on the show with us.
I'm so excited for him to come on. My daughters they were so inflexible, they couldn't even touch their toes, and then they went to one seminar with Sensei Fernet, and all of a sudden they could like do all these amazing things.
I do it, Sensei. What do you want to say to us as a crew, or anyone individually, or the audience?
I'm actually, I gotta say something about last weekend. It was too short. I mean, not small, but too fast. I wish we had more time, you know, to be with Sensei Suino and Sensei Therien and everybody that was there. You know, I missed Cezar, but I guess I'm going to see you again soon in Gatineau, I guess, or maybe before. But what a great weekend. And, I was just listening to, what you guys were talking about. The relationship that we have between all of us is priceless. And it's when you don't see people for a little while and then you see each other again, you just don't want it to end. I mean, we have so much in common, so much to share. And there's something very special in there. So I truly enjoyed that weekend, but also truly enjoy your initiative with the podcast, because that's another way for us to be in touch and to exchange and, have news and, so basically, this is all very positive.
Hey, Ben, so I mentioned to Sensei Fournette on the weekend that the thing from his podcast that stuck with me is the possibility of reincarnation. Like, I never really, people say stuff like that to you, but then you're like, if you're not a believer. But then when he asked on the podcast, he said, when did you like Japanese food? And I said, I always liked Japanese food. Like, from the time I was a kid, like, I always liked it. And he's like, well, why? You were never to Japan. You don't know, like, why is it that? And I was like, oh, damn. Like, that turns the whole apple cart upside down. Now you need to think about that, right?
Yeah. I truly believe in that for sure, and there's a lot of time in our lives, you meet people and you're like, okay, it feels like you know that person for a very long time, but it's the first time. And, there's a lot of little things like that happens in our lives that are all those little signs about, previous life. I truly believe in that. And sometimes you don't see, you meet somebody, you won't see that person for a long while maybe, but you're not worried because for some reason you just feel it down inside that you're going to see that person again. Maybe not in that body, but
Love that. And we're so happy to have you here on the screen with us again. And we're just really grateful that you're part of our 100 episodes.
That's great. I'm super happy, stoked about it. That's very nice.
Really enjoyed my time with you last weekend. Sensei Fournette.
Oh, me too. And your girls are fantastic. It's it's encouraging to see youngsters, like they're not that young, they're like teenagers, but they're older. But there's a great human being and very, very martial art oriented, not sport martial art or sport karate, but the Budo in that way. And this is great. You did great, my friend.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. I didn't do it by myself.
Really? Yeah.
Other
Fantastic.
people on this call did it too. Yeah.
Well, such a pleasure. Thanks for coming on and saying hi. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I'm in the dojo right now. That's my black belt class. I'm going to go back to that, but I look forward to see everybody again soon. And thank you so much for putting together the podcast. It's truly appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everybody. We talk soon.
Bye-bye, Jean.
So I got a question I'm excited to ask. We'll start with you, Sensei Dauphin. Is there an answer you gave when you were the guest that you wish you could have changed, or just a general opinion you held around the time you were the guest that's changed because of the show? Sensei Dauphin, take your time.
Why'd you have to spring that on me? I don't know. Most of the things I said, I regret almost.
Sorry, Sensei.
Right. So, I mean, we could just delete that podcast off the internet if you want. Like, that would be okay. I never wanted to do that podcast, Sean. Like, you guys made me do it, just for the record. Everybody made me do it. I never would have done it. So I probably regret every word that I said on there, unless I said nice things about Hanshi Legacy and Sensei Sereno and Sensei Copeland. If I said nice things about them, I don't regret any of that. I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't know how to answer your question.
That's okay. It's a big, broad question. So
yeah. Sorry.
Right on. No problem. Sensei Sereno, what about you? Is there anything, you were our first ever guest, we didn't even know that you were going to end up being one of the hosts. It's just such a powerful episode. Everyone should revisit it and share it. And then we ended up realizing that we had to have you on board. So is there anything since day one that you went, no, I wish I said that differently, or I've rethought it?
I would tell you something, Sean. I've been dropped on my head a lot. If I don't go back to that episode on YouTube, I have no idea what I said. But I have no regrets. But you know, when you hear your voice on recordings or see yourself on video, it's there. For me anyway, there's always an awkward feeling, and it's been wonderful that people have been so positive. I'm unlike Randy. I have no problem getting on any platform and running my mouth. I don't know why, but I love doing it, and no regrets. And maybe when we hit 300, we can do it again and see if it's better.
Nice. Sensei Copeland, is there anything you would have said differently or an opinion that's changed since you were on?
No, not
He's
really.
on
I
TV
mean,
all the time.
I don't normally say bad things about
Everybody's saying
anyone, but I do remember when Randy had asked about me doing the show, I was very adamant about not doing it because it wasn't, I was just, I mean, I'd do anything else for him, I said, but I'm not doing the show. And I think it took a little bit of convincing. Now, in retrospect, I'm happy that I did the show because here I am, part of the 100. And had I not done it, I would have missed out. So that's the only regret that I have, is that I wasn't so enthusiastic initially, not knowing what I was getting into. But man, it's been absolutely wonderful, and I feel honored that he even considered asking me. But I wouldn't change anything. Everything went like it was supposed to. And if I did offend somebody, they haven't called, they haven't said anything. So I guess it's okay.
Right on. Hanshi Borkowski, anything you'd change about what you said, or an opinion that's changed since then?
Comparing Steven Seagal's hair to Sensei Suino's hairstyle, I take it back.
As you should. As you should.
Not glued
Hanshi.
to it. You
That was
know,
so shameful.
You know, two guys wearing hakamas. I just thought you had the same hairstylist, of course. You know, I take back all the pronouns I used. I can't use my pronouns anymore. So if I could go back, I would like to delete all the his and her, and you know, just. We're living in the gender fluid world right now. So, you know, we can say 3 words and offend somebody. So thank God for martial arts. Believe it or not.
You know, I'll go dub your voice saying what you want me to, you know, the
Perfect. No, it's all good. It's all good.
Right on. Hanshi Therien?
Listen, whatever I say, I first of all, I never set out to hurt anybody. I never set out to say bad things about anybody. And thinking French and speaking English is not always the right formula, but I have no regrets. And a little bit like Suino Sensei, I've taken some nasty break falls in my life too. So if you ask me what I did this morning, I have to go, oh yeah, this is what I did this morning. I had 3 guests, my last 3 guests from Austria, and I drove them to the train station. And now remember where they're going. They'll be knocking maybe on your door, Cesar, in a few days. They're going to the Toronto area. It seems to be the norm. So no regret, because I'm not a bad person. I a little bit like what Conroy mentioned. I don't go out to try to insult some people. I know I've done it, and I did, or maybe I say the wrong word, but definitely not intentional. So no regret on my part.
Right on. Hanshi Legacy, anything you'd say differently or an opinion that's changed significantly since then?
Yes, I'm going to make it really short. And I laughed when Sensei Borkowski said Steven Seagal. I chose him for my best TV actor. And then I found out a bunch of things. And anyway, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, especially his, but I'll let it go.
Right on. I did a half interview, and honestly, it was so recent that I would have to go rewatch it and see. I was just honored to be asked a few questions, but every single day, my opinion changes. I think the biggest thing for me that's changed since episode 1 is any belief that any martial art's actually different from any other martial art. I know that at the execution point, perhaps, but from the center out, no. and the mastery, no, and the top of the mountain, no. And I just keep seeing that over and over and over again. And it's like, great, you want to be percussive, as Sensei talks about, Sensei Dauphin, or you want to be a, control. Those are different manifestations of the exact same thing. I've learned on this show. So I think something I'd already had a real inkling of, but any sense that these are actually different. On the way up the mountain, yes. At the top of the mountain, no. Okay, I got a question. This is a fun one, and I'm not trying to, like, what's the word? I'm trying to set us up for success. Sure I am. So we'll start with you, Hanshi Therien. What guest would you most like to see on our show in the next little while, in the next 100?
Oh, well, there's a lot of great talent out there, and I look at, we all talk that we may not be there in 20, 30 years from now, okay? I'm going to be 75 on my next birthday, so for sure on my part. But I look at the up and coming. If you had an episode, there's so much talent out there, and I'm proud when I see them because we produced them. We shared with them, and then they came up. So there's a lot of up and comers that, if you put them on the show, it might not be as easy for them to say things like, because we've been doing it for so long. So there's the up and comers. I just wish, though, that not necessarily one person. My friend Cezar is started a podcast now, and what he's saying too is an educational podcast, the way I look at it. He explains a lot of the philosophy of the martial arts, which I am not good at. So I keep this, and since I finished the World Convention, that'll be my morning coffee, listen to or read about, So that to me is a plus, because I'm a white belt in that stuff. So that is a plus for me. And I look at, can you imagine if you had on PKCC guys like Joe Louis and some of the original masters, going back 50 years, 100 years ago. We missed out on those, but I think you're on the right track. There's a lot of other people. Cezar knows so many from Okinawa. And I think if you did with some of those masters over there and have Cezar to translate, maybe it will be, I think it would be something that they would bring, more of the traditional style. So something to look forward to.
Right on. Sensei Copeland, dream guest when you're watching.
Jai.
Yeah.
I can't. He's a martial arts actor. I love this guy. Who is it?
Michael Jai White?
No. He's an Asian actor. He was in Ambak.
Tony Gia. Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I would like to have conversation with him, at least through the podcast. I mean, he seemed like such a cool person that's way out there. I'll never meet him, but if you brought him on, I'd watch this show over and over.
Awesome. Hanshi Borkowski, as a fan, as someone watching, dream guest.
Steven Seagal, that's it. I'm in love with Steven Seagal.
You're
I have
not
all his
wrong.
posters.
You're not
above the
wrong.
wall, I watch his hair progression.
That'd be a hell of an
All my
app.
posters, I have this poster, this is hair receipts back. Okay, let's leave poor Steven Seagal alone. Regarding the Okinawa connection, Patrick McCarthy lives in Okinawa and is an almost native speaker of Japanese, so he's our go-to guy in that respect. And I think he can really connect you guys in that respect. For me, even though I'm very connected to a lot of Tentans in Okinawa, things like that, the two people I admire that would be great guests for you guys. One is Renzo Gracie, and the other one's Jean-Jacques Machado. And I speak to both of them, easily, and I think they'll be great guests. And maybe after we get off, we can maybe talk about getting them on. The brilliant people, and they're exceptional, bright, business people, and they have great big groups, and they come from a fighting background, but there's so much more. They're really masters of jiu-jitsu. They're people who are taking it to a higher level. I mean, you have people, the 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu, all that group. But Jean-Jacques Machado, and Renzo Gracie have a very kind of progressive yet traditional group, you know, where people bow, show proper respect, things like that. And they fit right into the pantheon of the guests here. So I think they should be definitely on schedule at some point with your okay. And
I love
Pat
that.
will
I just
definitely
missed him in LA on the
put you
last trip when I
Yeah.
was there. And when I messaged him about this podcast, he left me on read.
Okay, Sean, he'll be in Toronto in June.
Okay.
Mid-June. If you like to come up, I can maybe arrange you know, for you to train with him and stuff if you
Oh,
like.
that'd be sweet. If
Okay.
I'm not in Calgary, that'll work out
Okay,
beautiful.
perfect,
Um,
guys. That's it. You know, just you know, we tend to think it's always our own style, our own ryuha we want to promote and things like that. But I enjoy learning more from other styles because it's different, a little different. You know, so it's kind of we learn, you know, the things maybe they're weak in a repertoire and also a different way of thinking. Also, Hanshi Therien has such a, you know, like he brought on Johann Skelberg, you know, people like that. You know, I think John, has Mike Wall done a
Yes,
Yeah,
Mike
yeah,
Wall did,
okay.
and Alain did. Yeah.
okay, you know, Mike is a great jujitsu guy, but also very funny, intelligent. He comes from a tradition, you know, like I really like to see, you know, more worldwide people and people who are exceptional at other martial arts. Did you have Stephen Hayes on? Yeah, okay. So, you know, Stephen's a great guy. There's a lot of Al Dacascos, which is Mark Dacascos' dad. He's a brilliant guy, amazing guy. We can arrange, maybe have him on if you guys like. You know, the world is a big oyster. You know, we'll leave it at that.
So fun. Sensei Dauphin, dream guest.
Before we do dream guest, I just want Hanshi Borkowski, if Benson's away, I'll take his spot at that Jean. Just letting you know that I'll take that spot. I guess, okay, so there's somebody I've left a voice message with, and I think Hanshi Borkowski can help me with that person. I'd really like to have Sensei Uslis on here. I really think Uslis should come on this show. I would really love to have him on here. I remember him from forever. He's a superlative martial artist and a really nice human being. And I think he has a great story to tell. And I'd love to learn some things. And I think the community needs to learn from him.
Yep.
So love to have Sensei Uslis on. Outside of that, if anybody could help us get Chuck Norris on here, that would be outstanding. He'd be my dream guest. I would love to have Chuck Norris on here. It would be so cool. Just to fanboy on him. So
John?
mine.
Okay.
Nice.
I'm on it.
Sensei Suino, what about you? Who do you wish we could just tee up?
You are muted.
I am muted. This is not if there's anybody in history you would train with, they have to be alive for this question.
They have to be
I would 100% like to get Chuck Norris on this podcast. As I've mentioned in the past, his movie, The Octagon, figured very prominently in my early training. And I've watched his career ever since. I would say that's probably the number one. The number two would, of course, be Georges St. Pierre, who is a wonderful martial artist, and by all accounts, everything I've seen, a wonderful human being. And I think he has shown a path that's a little unusual for an MMA fighter. I mean, we've had a few on, and they seem to be wonderful people, but he seems to really have matured as a human being. So I would love to have GSP on this show if we could do that.
Woo! Awesome. Well, you saved me using him, so I'll say someone else. Hanshi Legacy, who would you love to chat with?
It would be nice to have Jackie Chan on, because he's a different type of a martial artist. He's more in the movies, but you can see all what he does with his body and his quickness and his coordination and everything. But the person, if I have to choose a person for us all to learn something from, it would be Anthony Sandoval, because he's very little known, and he's so quiet, keeps to himself. But some of the stuff he told me about the White Crane, and not only has he told me, he showed me, and then some of the bunkai I couldn't figure out in Shorin. He said that's because it's a crane type move, and they were put in there. The thing that is not good about the White Crane system is that Matsumoto only really invented one of those katas, that's Hakatsura Dai. The rest were all put in by other masters to form sort of a style. It would be nice to have him to make that clear. He trained 17 years in Okinawa with as a Marine with a lot of the masters there. So that would be my choice.
Love that.
I still have a few questions. I need to ask him. Yeah.
Love that. For me, you know, I just have such a love, and GSP was already mentioned, but I'm just such a Randy Couture fan. I love that era that he bridged from the 90s into the 2000s. And I think, I just think he's a charming individual, having met him for like 3 minutes. Another one's Ronda Rousey. You know, I think that just by virtue of, you know, the number of men and women who join martial arts, we've had less women on the show, and she's just a baller. She blew up the women's league. And, you know, the league passed her by in a sense, but there's nobody who's more responsible for why we're watching women on the UFC right now. And chatting with her would be epic. So these are some fun names, folks. I love the idea that the people watching are going to be thinking right now, wait, who do I want on? And I just got to throw out, we have on our Punch Kick Choke Chat website, the blog area, where you can come in and drop your suggestions. And we've gotten guests already from that, but it can be a moonshot, you know, and if you don't know what that means you can just make up like, I wish you could get on, you know, like Jackie Chan, like probably a tough one to get, but nothing's impossible. We're here for solutions, not problems. So, you know, if you as a viewer are going, oh my God, imagine if we could get so-and-so, there's a pathway to anybody. And we just have so much fun with this that, you know, there's no way in a lifetime we could get to everybody, but what a fun thing to imagine and think about. Oh, look at that. Sensei Dauphin threw up the contact guest thing. So if you're on the live Zoom call right now, you can pop down there and you can find that.
Yeah, and if Grandmaster Chuck Norris is watching this and he wants to put his own name on there and his contact information, that would be great. We would be very excited about that.
I think there's rumors that he's omnipotent and omniscient, so he's literally watching this no matter what he's doing.
or maybe he'll show up at Capital Conquest and the week before he can do the show. You never know. You never know. You never know. Or Steven Seagal, one of the two.
Yeah, hopefully it's one of
Hopefully
it's one of those two.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
John always has a very, very big guest. So it'll probably be Steven Seagal size-wise, but Chuck Norris fame-wise, you know. So.
Yeah.
There's one more question we kind of have prepared, and it's not going to be the last thing we talk about. We will do around the horn after that, but I do want to ask, in terms of future generations, this has been touched on when we talked about the value of the show a bit, but what do you most hope future generations get from this or this type of show? It doesn't have to be ours. And, you know, in the way I said, what's the dream guest? If you were like, the next 100 episodes, it could be even more helpful for a future generation to get X, Y, or Z. What is that? What are we doing here? And what are the future generations going to get? Sensei Copeland?
I think really we're just trying to provide a resource, you know, because these days everybody's doing deep dives on the net and looking for this, that, or the other thing. And this would be one of those resources that they can deep dive and go, I didn't know that, or, oh, that's pretty interesting, or, whoa, I hope one day I get to meet that guy. We're just providing another venue for them to explore and see how good it could be. And maybe that might promote them into expanding their horizon. So it's resource rich, I think, would be the benefit of the future for these guys.
You know, I love that. And just in terms of like value, like who knows specifically, but my dad's a retired English professor and he'll donate like letters he has from like 2 great authors to like the University of Guelph, and they'll give him like $100 for the letter. It'll be a tax receipt. But the point is that that's how valuable it is when future generations go back to look at, did those authors actually communicate while they were writing that book? So yeah, something you said stimulated that in me. Sensei Suino, what do we want future generations to walk from, and what can we add that would help that? if anything?
If we continue to have these great conversations, have new guests on, have repeat guests who are great, we're doing it. We're doing it. I've got, as I mentioned, I've got brand new, really new students from JMAC on this call right now. And two things are happening. They're getting educated by listening to our conversation, but also they're learning to rise above, right? When we start seeing those folks show up at the dojo, train hard, come in early, stay late, help clean the place, show up on Punch Kick Choke Chat, ask questions on Punch Kick Choke Chat, check with me the next day and say, hey, Sensei so-and-so, what's all the talk of Steven Seagal? Those people are rising above, man. This is the path. They're curious. They're motivated. I think we're doing it. I think we just got to keep doing it.
Love that. Sensei Dauphin?
I would say, well, obviously I want them to learn like people's path. But I hope they know we're not acting like this. Nobody on this podcast is acting. Like we don't have scripts. We're not acting. And this is the community you want to be in. Like you want to be in this type of a community. Because in this community, nobody gives a shit if you're gay, straight, black, white, girl, boy. We only care, this community only cares that you put your uniform on, get your two bare feet out on the floor, and you do the damn work that we're all doing. And I hope that that's what future generations see. And I hope that helps that to carry forward. That, Hanshi Borkowski said, like, whatever gender pronouns you want to use, we don't really care. We just care that you get on the floor and you train and you work out with us and you help us and we help you. That's what I hope they get.
Right on. Hanshi Borkowski?
I think you're not just leaders of martial arts, but also mentors. And I think we have to pass the torch. Gustav Mahler, famous composer, I'm very fond of a saying that Patrick McCarthy and I will repeat quite often. He said, the best way, a tradition or something we have of value, we want to pass on the flame, not the ashes. So it's a living thing. You have to share something that's vibrant and you have to step out of the limelight, let other people in. I think martial arts has traditionally, from going back in older era, the teacher was always the teacher, the funakoshi, Morihei Yushiba, whatever, it's a cult, figurehead cult. And it is, if you look at like Kyokushinkai, because Masayama was so powerful, Kyokushinkai was the largest style of karate in the world. The minute Masayama was dead, it splintered into 30, 40 different groups, and Kyokushinkai is not really very big anymore because it was all based on a cult of personality. So we have to stop fostering a cult of personality, but foster the cause of education and truly building leaders, people who are going to take care of us. John sent me this cartoon of like a sensei leading a little kid and then a grown guy pushing the sensei in a wheelchair. I mean, that's pretty much our life. That's where we're heading. So if we don't have a strong legacy of strong students, great leaders to take over, we're not doing very well. And I know everybody on this call is doing just an incredible job in developing, future leaders and future dojo directors and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's so important to pass the torch, while it's still lit. So thank you.
Well, I appreciate that. And just so I'm not always the last one answering, I kind of want to give my answer, and it's related to that, Sensei Borkowski, which is, I don't know who's going to watch in 50 years or get anything out of this, but the literal motivation that this show gives me, the connection that this gives me to all of you, and the excitement with which I then go back to my students, I do know in 50 years that will have an actual echo effect. So in terms of the legacy for future generations, I know that my connection to the show on a personal level is making me a better martial artist, me a better teacher, and therefore my students will benefit. And when I'm gone, which is, still such a long ways down the road, I will have percolated through them in a more dynamic and interesting way because of this show. That's all I know to be true. The rest, I hope that someone finds it, gets off on it, enjoys it the way we do. But I do know for a fact that when I teach, the next time, even this episode will inform that. Hanshi Therien?
Well, it touches on what you said and on what Cezar mentioned, is that PKCC gives life to everyone in one way or another. Life and knowledge about the history, life about how you can move on. And don't forget that people are very hungry for knowledge and they're very hungry for contents. And PKCC has that. You know, like we've been on for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and somebody is going to pick up one little thing and that's going to make their day, and that's going to make them train better, move forward, and maybe graduate as a very high black belt, and somebody else will be another little something. So, but together with PKCC and all the guests you've got for the 100th episode is giving life to people in the martial arts. So if we can keep that going, I think we're on the right track.
Right on. Hanshi Legacy?
Well, being that everyone has covered almost everything, I think one of the things is that in the years to come, the podcast can be a bit of a guideline to someone who's looking for martial arts, someone who is not even related to martial arts and may be wanting to find out certain parts of it, what to really look for, like not just about fighting, but the truth about martial arts is that there are many other assets that martial arts can give you in everyday life. Very simple things, being aware, not getting run over by a car, etc. And then the self-defense part of that martial art protects that life that you're having. So that's all there was left. You guys covered everything.
Well, Hanshi, guess what we're going to do then? We're going to go right back to you. I said to Sensei Dauphin, I was like, we had 4 questions prepared, and it was like, this is going to be over before we fucking know it. And I feel like we've just begun our conversation and we're at around the horn time. Hanshi Legacy, what do you want to say about tonight? What do you want to say about the show? Anything you want. It's your time as we go around.
Well, I'd just like to echo Demura Sensei's words that you were all my family. That's all.
Nice.
Good.
Hanshi Therien?
For me, it's look, if we all keep doing what we're doing, we're fine. You know, we're doing something good. When I promote a big event, there's a certain person that most likely is listening over here, and it means nothing except to my wife and that person. At the big events like Capital Conquest, that person brings me 1 or 2 chocolate chip cookies. And for some reason, she knows when to bring it to me, and it just lifts me on that moment. Somehow she can read my mind that a little thank you with a chocolate chip cookie makes my day and makes the weekend better. So, and I hug people when I see them. And as long as we can keep doing that, there's some parts of the world you can't do that anymore. They'll throw you in jail. So anyhow, folks, let's just keep being who we are. Thank you for everybody.
Hanshi Borkowski, what do you want to say about anything you want to talk about?
That we're all, you know, the old term journeyman. You know, journeyman was someone who was in between apprentice and the master carpenter or electrician. You know, the journeyman was the person, and that's often, you know, that's the era with this passion still. You know, we still want to learn things, acquire things, and we have so much to learn. You know, if we live 10 lifetimes, it would not be enough to learn everything that's available in martial arts. So, you know, when somebody says they're, you know, a great grandmaster or this or that, you know, ranking is a temporary thing. It's just, you know, like, it's like heating water. You have to make sure you have the right temperature at some point, you know, but it's, the knowledge is infinite. And I think, you know, when you get older, I think you really appreciate the time you have and how much there's still left to learn. So I thank you all, and thank you all for being my teachers as well. So, you know, we share. So thank you very much. Collective journey.
Thanks, Hanshi Borkowski. Sensei Copeland?
Well, it's unfortunate that it's over already. This 100th episode, but I definitely want to say thank you for the opportunity to be here and to share, and for the new friends that I've met through this PKCC, which I probably wouldn't have met as readily. So I'm grateful for that, because friends are important no matter what happens. And like Randy mentioned earlier, we have this thing, if you call, I will come. The reason doesn't matter, just call. And that means if you call, it's because you need something, you need me. So then I will just come. So that has been something that I'm very happy to be part of. And the show will go on, absolutely, with you guys at the helm. It's going to be fantastic. And plus, I love seeing Sensei Legacy anyways. You know, with these
A black and white version of each other.
That's right. we go back. It's been absolutely wonderful, and congratulations to you guys.
Thank you very much. Sensei Suino?
Yeah, you know, you have the idea, you put in the hard work, things go well, but sometimes you're blessed, and we've been blessed by you guys. The fact that you come on the show and add your wisdom, the fact that we're developing friendships, the fact that you invite us to participate with your dojos and your events. It's a great place to be, man. We're in this together. We're doing something good in the world. And a big part of that is because of you. We'll keep doing it, and we hope that you'll continue to support us. Thank you.
Thanks, Sensei. Sensei Dauphin.
Listen, we're at 100, but we're not the only game in town. I want to mention that one of the things I'm really proud of is that other podcasts have sprung up and more knowledge is being spread because of PKCC. I've been blessed to go on Ring Talk with Hanshi Therien. He did Ring Talk. Really proud of that. If you haven't seen Ring Talk, go watch it. Hanshi Legacy was on. It's an awesome podcast. When I got super excited when I saw that Hanshi Borkowski was going to do his own podcast. I was totally pumped about that. Charles Banfield, like when he did the Karate Canucks episode, I got a bunch of messages saying, oh, this guy's copying. I'm like, brilliant. Like he wasn't actually copying us. He actually had the idea before us. I just want to say that, right? And he does a great job. He has great podcasts. More good stuff is better. Like we're doing good stuff and more people doing good stuff and us all being aligned. That's good for everybody. And I'm pumped about that. And then I guess the last thing I want to say is I just want to mention a couple of names: Sensei Lemus, Angel Lemus, Sensei Bill Hines, Sensei Chuck Merriman, and Grandmaster Sensei Fumio Demora. Really proud. Those names, we should say them with reverence now. We should say them with reverence. And that's it for me, Sean.
Thanks, Sensei Dauphin. I'm never exaggerating when I go on about how honored I am to be a part of this. I can't say it enough. I know that I'm pretty good at hosting. I know that this is my career. It's my life. It's what I do. But I'm holding on by the seat of my pants every night. And I'm holding on because I am walking through doors that are open for me by my teachers, and my teacher, Sensei Dauphin, by being here. And every time I just look around and I go, okay, I haven't been kicked out yet. And it's just, I don't not feel that way. I actually am just at the end of every night at around this time, I go, whoo, okay, wow, I think I might actually be part of this martial arts community and this echelon of it. And I just want to say that I hope that feeling doesn't go away. I hope the hot ears don't stop because I like that I care that much about this. And I like that, I don't know. I know who I am. I know where my martial arts is, but I like going, I just need to make sure I belong though, not taking anything for granted because we're only as good as we are today. And that's as a podcast host, as a martial artist, as a friend, as a brother. Anyways, I'm so grateful we got to do this and we get to do this. I'm going to say some thanks right now before I throw it to Sensei Dauphin. Normally we do this in the other order, but because we are celebrating 100 episodes, we do not have 100 episodes without the names I'm about to say. And I mentioned a few weeks ago that Robert Slumsky said, I'm sorry if we're adding names, we could divide them. I was like, the more names we get to thank, the better, because that means as our thing grows, our website grows, the people contacting us grow, we actually need more people to help. And that's a real testament to everybody watching and listening. So I just want to say thank you to Mike Russell, Andrei Sedashev, Justin Shea, Daniel Holland III, Robert Schlumsky, Jesse Vitow, Alden Adair, Sydney Dauphin, Josh Kitchens, and Christiana Altamira. And we're just so happy for the help that you've given us and so grateful for it and for being part of the team. Sensei Dauphin, what's coming up?
Victor de Salomon, I think I said that right. I don't know him well, but I'm excited about the podcast. And I'm very excited to have Sensei Sean DeJong from Godrich on. Good friend of mine, great martial artist. And I'm just excited about the next couple of weeks and keeping the love going. Let's make sure we keep passing on the flame and not the ashes.
Like that.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you, Senseis, for joining us. Really special.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks so
Bye-bye.
much.
Everybody, have a beautiful night.
Thank you.
Right.